As we're living in a new era in which people change their minds very quickly after committing to us, and then infidelity becomes the cause of our mental destruction. We are living in an era where people constantly change their minds. Before we get into the story, don't forget to click on the bell icon and subscribe button if you want to hear more goosebump stories in the future. In the case of my ex-wife Danielle, let us call her Danny, 27 years old, and I'm Henry, 30 years old. Danielle and I both were social media influencers. We were friends for 3 years before I met Danielle in Zurich. I was not on social media at that time, but we became friends while I was in Switzerland. She was also new to social media vlogging when we became friends that time. I was an engineer at that time, accessing my mentor in the project that we got in Switzerland, and at that time I worked for a company as a trainee. With her two friends, Danny came to Zurich to have a hangout and also to record a YouTube video. Having worked all day long after the end of the working day, it was time to relax. This gave me the opportunity to hang out in a variety of locations around the area. At about 10 o'clock in the evening, I saw Danny and her friends in a restaurant. I was sitting there having dinner when I saw them. It was a video that they were making. Upon first seeing Danny, I thought to myself that we might become friends as she was a pretty girl. In order to find out where they were from, I went to their table and asked them where they were from. Surprisingly, they were also from Toronto, the same city as I was. It was then that I told them that I belonged to Toronto as well, and we became good friends as a result. I was invited to join them and I accepted their invitation. It was then that I decided to join them. At first, they informed me that Danny wanted to make travel vlogs, which I greatly appreciated, and we talked about that a bit. According to Danny, she is currently enrolled in a program that focuses on communication and technology. They stayed there for a period of 3 days. After becoming friends, we exchanged numbers and I met them on a regular basis. They arrived back in Toronto after a 3-day journey. Due to the fact that I had not met her, I was feeling upset. I therefore messaged her in order to get to know more about her. Even though it wasn't easy for me, I got emotionally attached to her in the end. Then after 3 weeks of working in Zurich, we'll be returning home to our families. In the meantime, I called her straight away to see if we could meet, but she had left for Los Angeles. In spite of my best efforts, I was unable to meet her. Once again, I waited for her to come. When she returned home after a period of 3 days, it was important for me to meet her as soon as possible, due to the fact that I could not live without seeing her any longer. It had been decided that I would reach the place at the time decided. It was a gorgeous dress that she was wearing when she arrived. The meeting took place at that time. During our conversation, we were quite frank, so I asked if she would allow me to join her video blogs. In response to that, she said yes, of course. She would also need someone who would be able to participate with her. For me, it was a golden opportunity that I'll never forget. The two of us started vlogging. During the same period of time, my internship with the company came to an end. In only 2 weeks of making videos, we managed to become famous. Both of us became a bit attached to one another. In addition to traveling, I suggested to her that she start a food vlogging channel. Our vlogging had now spread to 2 forums where we were posting videos. Within a month, we crossed the 3 million mark in terms of viewers and followers. This was a huge growth for the channel in a short time. As well as creating a passive income, we also set up a business. In our free time, both of us read the comments of the viewers who have watched our videos. One of the viewers commented that he was wondering if you both were married or not while you were ready. When I showed Danny that comment, she laughed, and when I asked her if this would ever happen, there was a look of fascination on her face as she stared at me. My memory of her looks at that time cannot be erased. My first impression of her was that she was also in love with me. However, she did not say anything to me. It was only after a few days that she revealed to me that she had a boyfriend who abused her and made her cry in front of people every time he saw her. She broke up with that monster, so that's why she doesn't want to start a relationship with anyone. As I was in love with her from the very first day, whenever we visited any city or place, I took good care of her in any case. And in the end, when I tried to propose marriage to her one day, she said she did not want to hurt me, but she confessed that she also liked me, but she just was afraid of having relationship with me. From the inside, I was very happy to know that she was also taking interest in me. After listening to what she said, I hugged her and reassured her that this would never happen again. She said she trusted me, but she needed more time to get mentally stable so she could trust me again. According to her, she was visiting a psychiatrist for treatment when the man made her ill by his acts while she was there for treatment. It was a brutal way in which he tortured her. I was also told by her that he was a psychopath. It seems that he had an issue with very minor things. After fumbling with the glass, which was mistakenly broken, he became violent and even slapped her in an effort to get rid of her. He was a drug addict. She said that before the relationship, she was not aware that he was a drug addict, but once he told her about her addiction, she realized that he was a drug addict. It was her intention to encourage him to get rid of his bad habits. Rather than doing that, he got into a fight with her instead. The first thing I said to him was to take your time, but keep in mind that he was an addict and I'm not the one. In my opinion, I was a straightforward person. It may be true that I am not a perfect match for you, but I am confident that I'll be able to make you happy in any way. After thinking about it for a couple of days, she finally made up her mind. I just needed her to trust me. It was then that she decided to get married to me. One of the latest episodes of our vlog, we announced to our viewers that now we are getting married. Everyone at the YouTube family wished us best of luck since we have a huge audience. The two of us got married and now a new chapter of our lives begin. Having met her, one of the best things ever happened to me. In my opinion, she was the perfect match for me. It was true that all those thoughts were valid until I found out about her sins. We decided to take a break from making vlogs after we got married. On our honeymoon, we went to the Maldives, which was one of the Danny's favorite places. It was a great time and we had a lot of fun. During our stay, we had a lot of activities to do, such as water sports, scuba diving, dolphin watching, and so on. The trip was both historical and adventurous at the same time. Having completed a very varied tour, we were returned to our home after the tour. Upon returning home from the airport afterwards, I received a job offer from a very large company as I was sitting in the living room of our house. Since I started vlogging at the beginning, but whenever a company needed an engineer for a specific project, they hired me for the job for that particular project. But this time they offered me a job with a very high salary for a long-term project. Initially, I did not want to do this, but Danny encouraged me to join the company. After a while, I joined the company, which had a lot of perks and was also giving us a house in a prime location on top of that. As a result of this, I was not able to join Danny in her vlogs. Thus, I too became irritated at the situation. Honestly, I would like to join the vlogs at some point, but I did not have a proper time for it currently. In part because of me, she also stopped to the level of making vlogs. Those were the days I missed the most. The times when we hung out and made vlogs with each other and quite enjoyable. Once I called her, she did not pick up my call, so I kept on calling her constantly because I had to inform her that I would be coming late tonight. So I contacted her constantly. The call was not being picked up by her. At the time of the call, it was the middle of the lunch hour. I found her own line on Instagram and thought that she might be busy since I found her own line. Eventually, when she called me back, she told me that she was taking a nap at the time. The first thing I said to her was that I had seen your activity on Instagram at the same time as hers. Afterwards, I did not receive any response from her regarding this issue. She began to tell me other things related to the house instead of telling me what she had been told. As well, I ignored her, and at the time I did not have a clue that she would do something like that to me. Once I get back home, as I walked into the hall, I noticed a guy sitting there. As soon as I walked into the house, they were both shocked to see me. There was a sense of fear in Denny's eyes when she saw me. After that, she introduced me to the guy who was her cousin. My first question to him was, where was he? In spite of the fact she did not make any mention of you to me, he did not join us on marriage. Then Danny said that he was her third cousin and they also met once in a year. During his visit to Toronto, he came to meet me and he was very excited to meet me. Afterward, I went to the kitchen as soon as I finished talk with them. It was possible to look into the hallway from a small window where there was a small opening in the kitchen. While I was pouring water into glass, I noticed that both of them were very serious about what they were talking. This seemed to be a strange thing to me. In my opinion, they both seemed to be afraid of me or have been afraid before my arrival. Then I went into my bedroom and smelled the same perfume that I had smelled from her cousin. There was something suspicious about it because I wondered why he would come to our bedroom in the first place. It may be about 15 minutes later after Denny walked into the room. Her face was pale. I wasn't sure why, but I thought she was sick and I wasn't sure what was going with her. In response to my question, she looked at me nervously and said no, she was fine. Her next move was to go to the toilet and wash her hands. In the last few weeks, he had started vlogging with a guy I met in the house with whom I spent the night. When I watched their videos in my free time, it did not bother me because I trusted her. As well as that, they were also doing well. She started wearing an excessive amount of revealing clothing in her vlogs, even though she had not ever worn any of these in real life. It was then that I asked her about it and she told me not to be too narrow-minded about it, that the clothes she was wearing were fine. There was so much rudeness in her answer. As I was watching her vlogs, I compared them with mine and that guy's vlogs. She behaves as if she is a pessimist, but she was not. There was something I couldn't understand. In any case, I let it rest with her. After thinking about it for a bit, I decided that I should not go any further about it. Once again, after a few days, I smelled the same fragrance a few weeks later when I returned home from work. There was no doubt that it was an indication of trouble. Whenever I smelled the fragrance or on or near the area of my bed, I knew it was an issue. In order to find out what was going on, I decided to look into it. I have arranged a few cameras for that purpose, and when I went to the market to buy the cameras, they also introduced me to a device that included a watch as well. As there was a button on the device, it was used to be placed in the door of the house as soon as someone tried to break in. So while opening the door, its button would be pressed and we would receive the signal on our watches. Having found it very interesting, I decided to buy it. I placed the cameras and that device next to my bed and I wore the watch whenever I went to work. In 3 days, I got a signal on my watch and I checked the recordings online and I found out that it was her friend who came over and they sat on the bed and watched a movie together. Whenever I received a signal, I checked the recording on my phone. Using my cell phone, I was able to check the recordings of the spy camera from anywhere in the world. My watch beeped a week later, and when I checked to see what was happening, I found they both were having candy. My immediate response was to rush to the house. Unfortunately, the office I was working at was far away from my house. That it was a bad luck. I was able to reach home after a journey of 15 minutes. It would have been great if I had caught them both red-handed, but I was late. As soon as I reached home, he had already left. Danny was acting as if nothing had happened at all. There was not a single word I said to her. Instead of that, I got her recording and uploaded it to social media in the middle of the night. In fact, it was a disaster for her because she woke up in the morning, she received thousands of messages and comments from the viewers, and then when she scrolled through the social media, she came across the recording. Also, I asked her what the fuck that was all about. In response, she said that she did not know anything about it. My reply was, well, I know I informed her that I uploaded the video, but I did not say so. When I mentioned it to her, She said it was a misunderstanding. The way I see it, you're making your own fool of yourself, not me. There is no doubt in my mind that you have an affair with that guy. As soon as I met him for the very first time in our house, I became alert to your activities. Her reputation was messed up on social media due to her infidelity, and she was receiving a lot of criticism because of it. After telling her to leave, I granted her divorce in a few days. Additionally, I also wrote a statement about the fact that I had divorced her from my account. She has now lost everything she had, her fame and her shame as well.